most of you will be aware of this tweet right here, or at the very least, you'll be aware of the information which has been discerned from this tweet and disseminated all over the internet. As you can see, this individual says that if Dillian Whyte has been offered anything above £2 million for AJ, he should snap their hand off. And Eddie Hearn simply says, double it, which has led people to speculate that Dillian Whyte has been offered £4 million to fight Anthony Joshua. There are even some people running around saying Dillian Whyte was initially offered 2, but because of what this guy said on Twitter, Eddie Hearn has doubled it to 4, which is completely insane. I don't need to explain why that's insane, but that's insane. Then this individual here, a different person, says Whyte is not taking less than Povetkin, and according to the newspapers, Povetkin got £6 million against Anthony Joshua. Eddie Hearn says it's more than Povetkin for your information. And this individual here says it's he can't turn down $4 million, and Eddie Hearn again says it's more than $4 million. So Hearn is not being specific about how much he's offering Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte is his client at the end of the day, so he needs to tread very carefully in terms of what information he releases. He doesn't want to upset his client. And that's what he is doing. He is treading carefully. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say that Dillian Whyte has been offered £5 million. And that would be less than Povetkin, but do we know for a fact that Povetkin got £6 million? The newspapers say that he did. Do we know it for a fact? I don't. Unless we see the paperwork, we don't know how much any of these heavyweights are getting paid. We don't know how much Wilder's getting paid. We don't know how much Fury's getting paid unless we see the paperwork. And in fact, we need to see a lot of paperwork. We need to see the breakdown of the pay-per-view percentage splits. We need to see how much the promoters take off the top of the pay-per-view revenue. We need to see concrete proof of the baseline purses. We need to see the gate. We need to see a hell of a lot to be able to confirm exactly what these fighters are making. And we're never going to see that. And furthermore, Wilder and Fury's team are never going to see what Anthony Joshua's really making, and vice versa. They're going to have ballpark figures. They're going to know roughly, but they're never going to know exactly because they're not privy to that information. But be that as it may, for the sake of argument, let's just say Dillian Whyte has been offered around £5 million. Now, Dillian Whyte is of the opinion that he deserves a similar kind of split against AJ as Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury would get or have been offered, this 40%. He says he's a pay-per-view fighter now. He's fought in 3 pay-per-views. Fury and Wilder have only fought in 2. So, well, Wilder's only fought in 1. Fury's fought in 2. So he believes he deserves as big a split as they're being offered. Now, I hear what Dillian Whyte is saying, but one of the problems is Dillian Whyte doesn't have anything that AJ wants. That's one of the problems. And when you have something that somebody wants, sometimes they're willing to pay over the odds to get it. You know, like these antique hunters, these people who turn up at auctions and they're, for whatever reason, interested in a rare antique. It might just be a chest of drawers. But because it's so rare, they're willing to pay way, way over the odds to attain it or to obtain it. And that's the case from what I can see with AJ. He's willing to pay over the odds to get that WBC belt. And as far as Tyson Fury goes, Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua is not only a bigger fight than AJ versus Whyte 2, but a much bigger fight than AJ versus Whyte 2, in my estimation. I don't know that for a fact, but that's my estimation, that it's a much bigger fight. I think that at this stage, even though Fury hasn't proved it by putting on his own pay-per-views in the UK, I suspect that Fury is or has a higher market value in the UK than Dillian Whyte at this point. I suspect that. And there are many different factors that you have to take into consideration when it comes to how much a fight could make. And there's an interesting dynamic between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, which I think doesn't exist so much between Anthony Joshua and Dillian Whyte. At the end of the day, Dillian Whyte has already fought Anthony Joshua and he got knocked out. The fans know this. Whereas Tyson Fury has never fought Anthony Joshua. So there is interest in the unknown. Also, Tyson Fury is undefeated. Dillian Whyte's been defeated before. Tyson Fury is a very big man. 6'8", 6'9", bigger than AJ. Dillian Whyte is smaller than AJ. So I think there are many different factors which play into making Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury a much bigger fight than Anthony Joshua versus Dillian Whyte. So when you take all those things into consideration, you can, kind of understand the AJ side to a certain extent in terms of not offering Dillian Whyte as much money as he would offer Fury. But I understand Dillian Whyte's frustration. He just has to ask himself, how much does he believe he can beat Anthony Joshua? If he really believes he can beat AJ, then even though 5 million might feel like the short end of the stick and less than he's worth, if he beats AJ, his paydays are going to go through the roof after that. His paydays are going to be beyond his wildest dreams if he gets in there and beats Anthony Joshua. He's going to hold 3 of the 4 major championship belts. He would almost certainly have to fight a rematch, but the rematch he would be the A-side in. And he would get, again, ridiculous amounts of money for that rematch. So he has to ask himself, how much does he want to attain the status as the #1 heavyweight in the world? If he wants to attain it all that much, and he truly believes he can beat AJ, then maybe he should consider, I'm not telling him to, I'm just saying maybe he should consider biting the bullet and taking what's on the table for the AJ fight on April 13th, if he truly believes he can win that fight. The reward is massive for Dillian Whyte against AJ. It's huge. The reward for AJ against Dillian Whyte is minimal. How much is AJ really going to gain from beating Dillian Whyte? He stands to lose a hell of a lot, but he doesn't stand to gain a lot. So that may explain his apparently derisory offer to Dillian Whyte. If it is like £5 million, I mean, that's still a lot of money. Don't get it twisted. But in the grand scheme of things, when you're talking about a pay-per-view fighter, and let's say he's offered roughly the same as Povetkin. Let's say he's been offered that. Povetkin is virtually unknown in the UK, certainly was prior to fighting Joshua. So Dillian Whyte being a pay-per-view fighter in the UK, how can he only be offered the same amount as Povetkin? How does that work? Well, Povetkin was mandatory. So mandatories get a predetermined split. So perhaps that's another path that Dillian Whyte might want to explore going down, is working his way into a mandatory position for one of AJ's belts, and therefore getting a guaranteed split. But would that guaranteed split satisfy Dillian Whyte? Let's say he gets a 25 or 30% split as a mandatory. Would that be enough for him? I mean, it depends on the belt. I think one of the sanctioning bodies, you get a 20% split, I think, and another one, it might be a 25 or 30%. So it's a slightly different percentage for the different mandatories. But let's just say, being generous, he gets a 30% split for becoming mandatory for one of AJ's belts. Would that be enough for him? Let's say the pot is, I don't know, for AJ versus Whyte, how big would the pot be? I can't imagine it would be any more than £30 million. I can't imagine that, and that's probably being generous. Because again, yes, Dillian Whyte has built himself into a pay-per-view fighter, but he lost the first AJ fight. That's in the minds of the fans. They almost feel like they know what is going to happen before it takes place. Even if they're wrong, this is how they feel going into the fight, and I think that would affect pay-per-view sales and what have you. I mean, even me, as a boxing fan, I've got a massive amount of respect for Dillian Whyte. Obviously, I respect AJ too, but I don't really want to see them fight each other next. I've seen it before. I feel like we're going to get the same result, but in more clinical fashion. I could be wrong, but that's how I feel. And I think a lot of fans feel the same way. So given that, that's why I suspect that the fight wouldn't do any more than £30 million, probably less than that. I think at best it does £30 million. And how do you divvy that up? 10% of 30 million is obviously free. Times it by 3, you're talking about £9 million. Would that be enough for Dillian Whyte? And that's 9 million at best. At best. It might be closer to what? 7 or 6 million. Which is maybe marginally more than he's getting now, or marginally more than he's being offered now. The advantage, though, if Dillian Whyte does work his way into a mandatory position for AJ, is that he wouldn't have to fight a rematch. Yeah, as mandatory challenger, there's no rematch clause. Unless you do something ridiculous and voluntarily decide to sign a rematch clause. But in a standard contract for a mandatory challenger, there is no rematch clause. If you beat the champ, you can sail off into the sunset. So that is an added benefit along with the guaranteed percentage split. And it's a guaranteed percentage split if it goes to a purse bid. You can negotiate for a different split. You can negotiate for a flat fee. You can negotiate for a bigger percentage than 30%. But it very rarely happens, to my knowledge anyway, that a mandatory challenger will manage to negotiate more than 30%. It rarely happens because for the champion, why would they give you more than they have to? If it goes to a purse bid, all they have to give you is 30% or 20%, depending on the sanctioning body. They don't have to give you any more than that. So anyway, I mean, I guess there is the whole issue of if the other side wins the purse bid, they can put it on wherever they want. They can put it on whatever network. But, that wouldn't be an issue here because at the moment anyway, Dillian Whyte and Anthony Joshua are both promoted by the same guy and on the same network. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Dillian Whyte being offered 4 million, 5 million to fight Anthony Joshua. Is it a derisory offer? Is it something Dillian Whyte should grab with both hands, or should he look to go in a different direction? Does he deserve more than this? Is his market value high enough that he should be getting more than, let's say, 5 million? I saw some figures put out on social media recently for the Dillian Whyte Derek Chisora rematch pay-per-view numbers. And I don't know if these numbers are accurate, but the numbers out there are like, I think 350,000, something like that, which is a lower number than Dillian Whyte versus Joseph Parker. But to me, I wouldn't at all be surprised if those figures are accurate. Dillian Whyte versus Joseph Parker, again, that's a fight that nobody had seen before. As good as Whyte Chisora 1 was, we've seen that before. Fans like a little bit of the unknown in terms of what the outcome is going to be when they haven't seen two fighters step in the ring before. They like a little bit of the unknown, especially if there's not that much on the line by way of belts and stuff like that, especially if the fight happened a long time ago. Whyte Chisora was several years before Whyte Chisora 2. If the fight had happened 6 months after the first fight, the pay-per-view numbers, well, it wasn't a pay-per-view fight at the time, but the excitement, let me just say that, the excitement for the rematch would have probably been a lot bigger if the rematch had happened 6 months after the first fight. But because several years had elapsed, it really took the edge off that fight because people forgot about all the controversy and what have you. So, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to see things from both points of view here, but one point of view, which I haven't yet put on the table in this video, I've talked about it in previous videos, is that maybe Anthony Joshua is just greedy as hell. Maybe it's just greedy. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Is that what it is? Is it Anthony Joshua? Because you can't say Anthony Joshua is scared of Dillian Whyte. He's already fought Dillian Whyte. He's already beat Dillian Whyte. But if you're somebody who believes that Dillian Whyte has been offered something derisory, how do you explain it? Maybe you say, well, Joshua has no intention of fighting Dillian Whyte. That's why he's giving him this lowball offer. Or you might say Joshua's just really greedy. He likes to keep the lion's share for himself. And unless you've got a really, really, really big cherry or prize to entice him with, then he ain't going to give you anywhere near what you want or anywhere near what you think you're worth. Deontay Wilder does have that WBC strap, you know. And as I've said before, if Dillian Whyte does attempt to go a different route to get a heavyweight title shot for the WBC, let's say, then he has to ask himself, is he going to get more money going that route than he would get fighting AJ? Let's say he's been offered $5 million for AJ. Is he going to get more than $5 million fighting Deontay Wilder? Now that Manuel Charr has been reinstated as the WBA regular champion, maybe Dillian Whyte will try go that route. Maybe Jarrell Miller will try go that route. That's the route Jarrell Miller tried to go. Him versus Bogdan Dinu was supposed to be for the WBA regular. So maybe Miller will try go that route instead of fighting AJ. Maybe Miller will say, oh, I want a lot more money now because this situation is now back on the table, this WBA regular. Charr has got to fight a Kendo. I mean, that's probably one of the most depressing sagas in all of boxing, is this whole Freza Kendo WBA situation. Truth be told. But yeah, Dillian Whyte has to ask himself that question. Is he going to make more money pursuing a different heavyweight title, you know, the WBC, than he would fighting AJ right now? And he can go that WBC route. Who's to say he remains, who's to say he doesn't get beat trying to go down that route? There are a lot of dangerous fighters in the heavyweight division. When you're talking about, when you move below the Anthony Joshuas and the Tyson Furies and the Deontay Wilders of the world, it's very competitive below that, isn't it? All those guys are similarly matched in terms of their ability and what have you. So will Dillian Whyte manage to go the WBC route and get that championship shot? There's been talk about him fighting Dominic Brazil. We'll see if that happens. I pick him to beat Brazil, but how long would he have to wait after Brazil to get a WBC shot? Is there such a beef between Al Heyman and Eddie Hearn at this point that if Dillian Whyte signed with Al Heyman, he would block a Dillian Whyte Anthony Joshua fight? Is that a possibility? You know, or if Dillian Whyte, stayed with Eddie Hearn, would Al Heyman block a Dillian Whyte versus Deontay Wilder? Because they are in direct competition at this point, Al Heyman and Eddie Hearn. There's no question about it. You got Eddie Hearn in the US, you got Al Heyman in the UK. So the politics may play a part in which fights happen and which fights don't, as is usually the case. Yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about all this, whether you think this fight will happen. And just let me know. It's happening, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.